Hey everybody, it's Stephanie, and today I'm going to teach you how I make my DIY iPad headrest mount. So we are going to be going on a camping trip, a summer camp kind of deal with our kids, so I decided I needed to make a headrest mount for Liam so to keep him busy. So I just needed some good sturdy fabric. You can use cotton. This is just a home fabric that I've had for years. You're going to need two types of elastic. A 1-inch elastic about 13 inches long and a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch elastic, and you're going to need 4 6-inch pieces, so a total of 2 feet. And then you're also going to need a piece of cardboard that is the same size as your iPad. Mine is 8 by 10, so my cardboard piece is 8 inches by 10 inches. And then you're also going to need your basic measuring device like a ruler and some scissors and of course your sewing machine. So after I've measured my iPad, I went ahead and added a 1/2 inch allowance all the way around, making my cutout going from 8 inches by 10 inches to 9 inches by 11 inches. And you're just going to cut 2 pieces out of that. So here I am just laying it down just to make sure that it still fits, and I have right sides together. So what I'm going to do now is make my markings for where my elastic is going to go. And I'm going to do that by taking a fabric marker and going around the corners and marking measurements at 3.5 inches. So here's 3.5 inches here, 3.5 inches here, 3.5 inches here, 3.5 inches here. You get the idea. So you just go all the way around making your 3.5 inches from each corner. Then you can take your 6-inch long, 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch elastic and place it on your markings. But what you're going to do is pull up that top layer of fabric, lay your elastic down on the marking, lay your top fabric back down so that your elastic is sandwiched in between those 2 layers. And you're going to do that all the way around so that it covers your corners. And you're also going to do that with your 1-inch elastic. You're going to feed it through the center of the long part. So it's going to sit in between 2 pins of where you've pinned down the elastic. And so it's going to look like this. This is how your elastic is going to look once you have it all pinned down. Make sure that you don't leave any slack in your 1-inch elastic because you want it to fit snugly around your headrest. So what you're going to do now is actually take out pins. We're going to leave an opening at one side of the rectangle so we can fit the cardboard in to make the mount sturdy. So you're going to take 2 pins out, and you're actually going to re-pin the elastic down to 1 piece of the fabric. So you're going to take the pins out, put them to the side, pull back 1 piece of your fabric and pin that elastic down to that bottom piece of fabric that you have, and then sew it down with a 1/4 inch inseam from the outside of the fabric. So here I've already sewn my elastic down to that piece of fabric, and you do that so that when you turn the fabric inside out and actually sew it down shut, you don't have any problem getting the elastic in, and it's already sewn down. So then you're going to sew all the way around the 3 other edges of your rectangle, these here, with a 1/2 inch seam. And I've got my iron heating up, and here I'll show you I have my 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then what you're going to do, and there's my opening, sorry. Then what you're going to do is take your scissors and you're going to cut the excess elastic off because you don't need that anymore. Everything's already tacked down. And then you're also going to cut that outer corner as closest to the seam as you can without actually cutting the seam. So here I am cutting that, and then I just went around the rest of my rectangle cutting the elastic and also cutting the corners. The reason why we cut the corners is so that when we turn it inside out, we're actually able to poke out those corners and make them nice and neat. And so you don't have any bulk of that extra corner fabric. And I'll show you that once I turn it inside out. But here it is, nice and finished. And here's what it looks like when you actually turn it inside out. And you can either take like a pencil, or I take my scissors because I'm very brave, and I go in and I poke out the corner. So this one's already poked out and it's nice and neat. And here on the other side you can tell it's not poked out, it's kind of rounded. So I'm just going to go in with my scissors and pull it so that the corner pokes out. And then once that's done, take my scissors out, and I'm going to turn my headrest mount over, and we're going to iron the seams down. The reason why we do that is because this elastic has other like polyesters and stuff in it that can melt if you have it on a cotton setting, and I don't want you to ruin your elastic. So we're going to turn it around and iron the seams flat. Here I have ironed the seams flat, everything looks nice and neat. And I've also gone ahead and ironed my pocket opening edges down so that when I sew it together, everything is nice and neat and the edges are straight and together. So how I did this was I straightened out my fabric and I marked a 1/2 inch from my outer fabric edge, and then I folded that down and ironed that straight, and then I also did it to my outer corners so that what I can do is not, without having my iron on my elastic again, I can fold down that back side fabric to where it looks like it's around the same as my top side fabric, and then iron the top of that so that my iron never touches the elastic, but it still gives you a good flat seam. And then here I've put my cardboard in, and I can see it poking out a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do is actually cut it down about 1 inch, and to make sure that it's away from that outer pocket opening so that when we make our seam, we're not sewing through cardboard. And this is how much I actually cut off. It was about 3/4 inches, and my cardboard is actually sitting nicely in there, and I'm going to go ahead and make a 1/4 inch seam. So here's my 1/4 inch seam after everything is finished, and that means that the headrest mount is pretty much done. And how this works is this big band actually fits around the back side, and that's how it connects to your headrest on your car. And then the other side, these smaller elastics are what hold there's my son Noah, but the corner elastic is what holds your iPad in. So you just kind of pull it up around the corners, and you do this on all sides, and this will hold your iPad up in place. So now we're out into my car so I could show you guys how to actually install it. And here's my iPad. It's completely installed onto the headrest mount. So you don't have to do that. You could just leave it off and then put it on after you got the mount onto your headrest. But I've done it just so you guys can kind of see it and understand it. And you put this big band over the top of your headrest, and you can either have it on your headrest or you can have it hanging off of the metal bars that hold your headrest up off your chair. And then it just depends on where you want the viewing to be. Like, I have it higher if I want people in the back to be able to see, or I'll have it hanging off the bars if I just want my son to see. But that's pretty much it. That is my DIY iPad headrest mount. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe.